Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge of the USS Defiant, watching the stars through the main screen. The ship was small compared to other warships, but it was fast and strong. Morrison had been its captain for 2 years now, and he knew. Every sound the engines made. The war with the Zephyrians had been going on for 3 years. The aliens were tough fighters with big ships and powerful weapons. They wanted to take over human space, planet by planet. So far, humanity was losing badly. Morrison was a tall man with brown hair and tired eyes. He had seen too many battles and lost too many friends, but he never gave up. That was not the human way. "Captain," said Lieutenant Alex Turner from his station, "we are getting a message from New Denver Colony." "It sounds urgent." Morrison turned to face the young officer. Turner was only 25 years old, but he was good at his job. "Put it through, Alex." The main screen changed to show a man in a dirty uniform. Behind him, Morrison could see smoke and flashing lights. The man looked scared and desperate. "This is Governor Bill Harris of New Denver Colony," the man said. His voice was shaking. "We need help right now. The Zephyrians are here. They have over 200 ships. Our defense fleet is gone, all destroyed. They are bombing our cities and our people are dying." Morrison felt his heart sink. 200 ships was a huge force. The USS Defiant was just one ship with 47 crew members. Governor Harris continued talking. "We have something important here. A research lab that is working on new communication technology. If the Zephyrians get it, they could win the whole war. Please, if anyone can hear this message, help us. We do not have much time left." The message ended. The bridge was quiet for a moment. Everyone knew what 200 enemy ships meant. It was impossible odds. Commander Lisa Brooks walked over to Morrison. She was his first officer and one of the smartest people he knew. Her short black hair was neat even after long hours on the bridge. "Jake," she said quietly, "New Denver is 12 hours away at maximum speed. By the time we get there, it might be too late." Morrison nodded. He looked around at his crew. They were all good people who had followed him through many dangerous missions. They trusted him to make the right choice. "Sir," said Chief Engineer Sam Parker over the communication system, "I heard the message down in engineering. The whole crew heard it." Parker was a big man with strong hands and a clever mind. He could fix anything on the ship and make it work better than before. Morrison had never met an engineer as good as Sam Parker. "What do you think, Sam?" Morrison asked. "I think those people need our help," Parker said. "And I think we can give them a fight they will never forget." Morrison smiled a little. Even when things looked impossible, his crew still wanted to fight. That was what made humans special. They never knew when to quit. Dr. Kate Williams looked up from her medical station. She was the ship's doctor and science officer. Her job was to keep everyone healthy and help with research. She was smart and kind, and the crew loved her. "Captain," she said, "the quantum communication research at New Denver could change everything. If we can save it, we might be able to coordinate all human forces better. It could help us win the war." Morrison walked to the center of the bridge. He thought about the choice he had to make. Go to New Denver and probably die fighting 200 enemy ships, or stay safe and let the colony fall. But it was not really a choice at all. The people of New Denver needed help. The research they were doing could save humanity. And his crew was ready to fight. "Alex," Morrison said, "set course for New Denver. Maximum speed." "Yes, sir," Turner said, his hands moving quickly over his controls. "Lisa, I want you to study everything we know about Zephyrian battle tactics. Find their weak points." Brooks nodded. "Already on it, Captain." "Sam, how long until we reach the colony?" 11 hours and 43 minutes at current speed," Parker replied through the communicator. "But Captain, I have been working on some changes to our weapons and engines." Maybe it is time to test them. Morrison raised an eyebrow. Parker was always making improvements to the ship. Some of his ideas were crazy, but they usually worked. What kind of changes, Sam? Come down to engineering, and I will show you. You are going to like this. 20 minutes later, Morrison stood in the engine room with Parker. The big engineer was excited as he showed Morrison the modifications he had made. I changed the torpedo launchers to fire our new quantum torpedoes faster, Parker explained. And I found a way to make our shields change frequency quickly. The Zephyrians will have trouble hitting us. Morrison looked at the changes Parker had made. Everything looked different, but Parker knew what he was doing. There is something else, Parker said, lowering his voice. I have been working on a new drive system. I call it the Ghost Drive. It can make us disappear for short periods of time. Disappear? Morrison asked. Not really disappear. We phase out of normal space for a few seconds, long enough to avoid enemy fire or get behind their ships. Morrison stared at Parker. If this worked, it could change everything, but it was also very dangerous. Is it safe? Parker shrugged. Probably. I have run tests. It should work. Morrison laughed. Parker's idea of probably safe had gotten him out of trouble many times before. All right, Sam. Get everything ready. We are going to need every advantage we can get. Morrison returned to the bridge. His crew was busy preparing for the battle ahead. They all knew the odds were against them, but nobody complained. Nobody asked to be transferred to a safer ship. Captain, Brooks said, I have been looking at Zephyrian battle formations. They like to stay in groups and use their numbers to overwhelm enemies, but they are not very creative. They do the same thing every time. Good, Morrison said. Predictable enemies are easier to beat. As the USS Defiant traveled through space toward New Denver, Morrison thought about what they were going to face. 200 enemy ships against one small human destroyer. Most people would call it suicide. But Morrison had learned something important during the war. Humans were good at winning fights they should lose. The next 11 hours would test everything. They had learned about fighting the Zephyrians. Morrison looked at his crew and felt proud. They were ready for whatever came next. The USS Defiant dropped out of faster-than-light travel at the edge of the New Denver system. Captain Jake Morrison stood on the bridge, looking at the screen that showed what they were facing. His heart sank at the sight. The Zephyrian Armada was even bigger than Governor Harris had said. Morrison counted over 200 ships spread across space near the planet. The alien vessels were dark gray and shaped like long triangles. Each one was 3 times larger than the Defiant. My God, whispered Commander Lisa Brooks. She was standing next to Morrison, staring at the enemy fleet. I have never seen so many ships in one place. Lieutenant Alex Turner looked up from his station. His face was pale. Captain, I am counting 214 enemy ships. They have the planet completely surrounded. Morrison watched as bright flashes of light came from the Zephyrian ships. They were bombing the colony below. He could see the planet's surface glowing red in several places where cities were burning. They are not just attacking military targets, said Dr. Kate Williams. Her voice was angry. They are hitting civilian areas too. Morrison clenched his fists. The Zephyrians did not care about innocent people. They just wanted to destroy everything. Human. Alex, are you picking up any signals from the colony? Morrison asked. Turner worked at his controls for a moment. Yes, sir. Weak signals from underground bunkers. Some people are still alive down there, but not for much longer. On the screen, Morrison could see the Zephyrian battle formation. The smaller ships were close to the planet, doing the bombing. The medium ships formed a protective ring around them, and the largest ships stayed far back, safely commanding the attack. Lisa, what do you see? Morrison asked his first officer, Brooks. studied the enemy formation carefully. She had been analyzing Zephyrian tactics for months. They are using their standard attack pattern, Jake. The command ships stay in the back and give orders. The battle cruisers protect them. The destroyers do the actual fighting. Any weaknesses? Brooks pointed at the screen. Look at how they communicate. See those energy beams between the big ships? That is how they send orders to the rest of the fleet. If we could cut those communication lines, the smaller ships would not know what to do. Morrison nodded. The Zephyrians were like a big machine. Cut the control wires, and the machine would stop working properly. Sam, Morrison said into his communicator, are you ready down there? Chief Engineer Sam Parker's voice came through clearly. Everything is ready, Captain. The quantum torpedoes are loaded, and the ghost drive is working perfectly. But I have to warn you, we can only use the ghost drive about 20 times before the power runs out. 20 times might be enough, Morrison said. What about our regular weapons? Our plasma cannons are working better than ever. I boosted their power by 30%. And our shields can now change frequency every few seconds. The Zephyrians will have trouble locking onto us. Morrison felt a little better. Parker's improvements gave them a chance, even if it was a small one. Captain, Turner said suddenly, I am detecting something strange. The big Zephyrian ships are sending out some kind of scanning beam. I think they are looking for something specific on the planet. Dr. Williams looked at her science readings. That must be the research facility. They are trying to find the quantum communication lab. Morrison realized they did not have much time. Once the Zephyrians found the lab, they would either capture it or destroy it. Either way, humanity would lose something very important. How long before they find it? Morrison asked. Williams checked her instruments. The scanning pattern suggests they will locate the facility in about 4 hours. 4 hours. That was not very long to defeat an entire armada. Morrison walked to the center of the bridge. His crew was watching him, waiting for orders. They all knew this was probably a suicide mission, but they were ready to fight anyway. Here is what we are going to do, Morrison said. We cannot fight 200 ships in a normal battle. We would lose in 5 minutes. So we are not going to fight normal. Brooks smiled. She knew that look on Morrison's face. He had a plan. The Zephyrians expect us to either run away or attack directly. We are going to do neither. Instead, we are going to use hit-and-run tactics. Strike fast, disappear, then strike again somewhere else. Turner looked confused. But Captain, even with hit-and-run attacks, how can one ship defeat so many? Morrison pointed at the screen. Look at their formation again. They have all their ships spread out to cover the whole planet. That means they cannot support each other quickly. If we attack one group, the others will take time to help. And, Brooks added, understanding the plan, if we can disrupt their communications, they will not even know where to send help. Parker's voice came through the communicator. Captain, I have an idea about those quantum torpedoes. What if we do not use them to destroy ships directly? What do you mean, Sam? The Zephyrians connect all their ships with energy conduits. They share power between vessels. If I can modify the torpedoes to overload those connections, one torpedo might disable several ships at once. Morrison's eyes lit up. How many ships could one torpedo affect? Maybe 5 or 6, if we hit the right spot. The energy feedback would travel through their power grid and shut down multiple vessels. This was exactly what they needed. Instead of having to destroy 200 ships one by one, they could take out groups of them with single attacks. Do it, Sam. Modify as many torpedoes as you can. Already working on it, Captain. Morrison looked at the enemy fleet again. The Zephyrians were so confident that they had not even bothered to post guards at the edge of the system. They thought no human ship would be foolish enough to attack such a large force. They were about to learn how wrong they were. Alex, take us closer to the planet. But keep us hidden behind that large asteroid field. Yes, sir. The Defiant moved carefully through the asteroid field, using the space rocks to hide from enemy sensors. Morrison watched as they got closer to the Zephyrian fleet. Soon they would be close enough to begin their attack. Lisa, I want you to identify the most important targets. Which ships do we need to hit first? Brooke studied the enemy formation. The communication ships are our primary targets. Take them out and the fleet loses coordination. After that, we hit the command vessels. And if we can create enough chaos, Morrison said, maybe some of the Zephyrian ships will start shooting at each other by mistake. Dr. Williams looked up from her station. Captain, I am detecting life signs from the colony. There are still thousands of people alive down there. Children, families, elderly people hiding in bunkers. Morrison felt the weight of responsibility on his shoulders. All those innocent lives depended on what his small crew could do in the next few hours. We will save them, Kate. All of them. The Defiant reached the edge of the asteroid field. Beyond the rocks, the Zephyrian fleet continued its deadly bombardment of New Denver. Morrison could see explosions on the planet's surface as more buildings were destroyed. Sam, are the torpedoes ready? Ready, Captain. I have modified 12 torpedoes to cause cascade failures in Zephyrian power grids. Excellent. Alex, plot a course that will take us behind the enemy's outer perimeter. Use the ghost drive to get us past their sensors. Course plotted, Captain. Morrison took a deep breath. In a few minutes, they would begin the most impossible battle of their lives. One small human ship against an entire alien armada. The odds were crazy, but that had never stopped humans before. All stations, prepare for combat. We are going to show these aliens why you should never underestimate humanity. The crew worked quickly to prepare for battle. Everyone knew their job and everyone was ready to do it. As the Defiant activated its ghost drive and disappeared from normal space, Morrison smiled grimly. The Zephyrians were about to get the surprise of their lives. The USS Defiant phased back into normal space behind a group of 6 Zephyrian destroyers. The alien ships had no idea the human vessel was there. Captain Jake Morrison smiled as he watched the enemy ships continuing their bombardment of New Denver, completely unaware of the danger behind them. Target locked on the lead destroyer. Commander Lisa Brooks reported from her tactical station. Her fingers moved quickly over the controls. Quantum torpedo ready to fire. Fire, Morrison ordered. The modified torpedo shot out from the Defiant and struck the lead Zephyrian ship. Instead of just exploding, the torpedo created a massive energy surge that traveled through the aliens' power grid. All 6 enemy destroyers suddenly went dark as their systems overloaded and shut down. Direct hit, Brooks said with satisfaction. All 6 ships are disabled. Lieutenant Alex Turner looked amazed. Captain, the other Zephyrian ships do not even know what happened yet. They are still focused on bombing the planet. Morrison nodded. This was exactly what they had hoped for. The enemy fleet was so large and spread out that when ships went dark, it took time for the others to notice. Sam, how did the torpedo work? Morrison asked through the communicator. Chief Engineer Sam Parker's excited voice came back immediately. Perfect, Captain. Better than I expected. The energy cascade traveled through their entire power network. Those ships will not be working again for hours. Dr. Kate Williams looked up from her science station. Captain, I am reading massive power fluctuations from other Zephyrian ships. I think they are trying to figure out what just happened to their destroyers. Good, Morrison said. Confusion is our friend. Alex, take us to the next target. Use the ghost drive again. The Defiant disappeared from normal space and reappeared near another group of enemy ships. These were larger vessels, cruiser class, but they were also completely unprepared for a surprise attack. Lisa, can you hit the communication array on the center ship? Morrison asked. Brooks studied her targeting computer. Yes, sir. If I can take out their main communication dish, they will not be able to coordinate with the rest of the fleet. Do it. Another quantum torpedo launched from the Defiant. This time it struck the communication array directly. The explosion sent energy feedback through the Zephyrian communication network, disrupting signals across half the enemy fleet. Communication disruption confirmed, Turner reported. Many of the Zephyrian ships are trying to re-establish contact with their command vessels. Morrison watched as the enemy fleet began to show signs of confusion. Ships that had been moving in perfect formation started to drift out of position. Some vessels stopped bombing the planet and began looking around for threats they could not see. Captain, Brooks said, I am detecting increased energy signatures from the Zephyrian command ships. They know something is wrong, but they cannot figure out what. How long before they locate us? Morrison asked. Williams checked her sensors. Their scanning beams are searching randomly. As long as we keep moving and using the ghost drive, they will have trouble finding us. Morrison felt a surge of pride in his crew. Every person on the ship was performing beyond their normal abilities. Under pressure, humans seemed to become smarter, faster, and more creative. Sam, how many modified torpedoes do we have left? Morrison asked. 8 more, Captain, but I have an idea. What if we target the power transfer stations between their big ships? If we can cut the main power lines, the entire fleet will lose coordination. Morrison looked at the tactical display. Parker was right. The Zephyrian fleet shared power between their largest vessels. Cut those connections, and each ship would have to operate independently. Show me the target, Sam. On the main screen, Parker highlighted 3 large structures floating between the Zephyrian command ships. They looked like space stations, but smaller. Energy beams connected them to multiple vessels. Those are power relay stations, Parker explained. Take them out, and the big ships lose their shared energy grid. They will have to use their own power, which means they cannot maintain full weapons and shields at the same time. Brooks studied the target. It is a good plan, but those relay stations are heavily defended. We will have to get very close to hit them. How close? Morrison asked. Maybe 2,000 kilometers. That puts us well within range of their defensive weapons. Morrison thought for a moment. Getting that close to the enemy was dangerous, but the payoff would be huge. If they could force the Zephyrian command ships to choose between weapons and shields, it would level the playing field. We do it, Morrison decided. Alex, plot a course to the nearest relay station. Use maximum stealth. Course plotted, Captain. The Defiant moved carefully through space, avoiding the searching beams of enemy sensors. Morrison watched as they approached the first power relay station. It was larger than he had expected, about the size of a small moon. Captain, Williams said quietly, I am reading life signs on that station. There are Zephyrians aboard. Morrison felt a moment of hesitation. He did not like killing, even enemy soldiers. But those same aliens were bombing innocent civilians on New Denver. Sometimes hard choices had to be made. How many? He asked. About 50 crew members. The station appears to be mostly automated, but they have a small maintenance crew. Morrison made his decision. We target the power cores, not the crew sections. Maybe they can evacuate before the station explodes. Brooks looked at him with respect. Even in war, Morrison tried to minimize unnecessary death. It was one of the things that made him a good captain. Torpedo ready, Brooks reported. Fire. The quantum torpedo struck the power relay station's main energy core. The explosion was massive, sending energy feedback through the entire Zephyrian network. Suddenly, dozens of enemy ships lost power as their shared energy grid collapsed. Direct hit, Turner said excitedly. 43 enemy ships just went dark. They are drifting without power. On the screen, Morrison could see the Zephyrian fleet in chaos. Ships that had been working together perfectly were now scattered and confused. Many vessels were trying to restart their systems, while others searched desperately for the invisible attacker. "The second relay station is moving," Brooks reported. "They are trying to get it to safety." "They are learning," Morrison said approvingly, "but not fast enough. Alex, intercept course to the second station." The Defiant chased after the fleeing power station. The structure was slow and clumsy compared to the nimble human ship. Within minutes, they were in firing range again. "Target locked," Brooks said. "Fire." The second relay station exploded in a brilliant flash of light. More Zephyrian ships lost power and drifted helplessly in space. "That is 87 enemy ships disabled," Turner reported. "Over a third of their fleet is out of action." Morrison felt a surge of hope. Their impossible plan was actually working. By targeting the Zephyrians' weaknesses instead of trying to fight them directly, one small human ship was crippling an entire armada. "Captain," Parker's voice came through the communicator, "the remaining Zephyrian ships are adapting. They are switching to independent power systems and changing their formation." Morrison nodded. The aliens were smart. They would not fall for the same trick 3 times. "What about the third relay station?" Morrison asked. "They moved it behind their command ships," Brooks said. "It is heavily protected now. We would have to fight through their entire defensive line to reach it." Morrison studied the tactical display. The remaining Zephyrian ships had formed a tight defensive formation around their command vessels. They were no longer spread out and vulnerable. "They are learning from our attacks," Williams observed. "But they are also getting angry. Look at their weapons signatures. They are powering up everything they have." Morrison could see energy building in the Zephyrian ships. Soon they would start a massive bombardment, trying to hit the Defiant by saturating the entire area with weapons fire. "Sam, how is our ghost drive holding up?" Morrison asked. "We have used it 12 times. 8 more uses before the power runs out. 8 more chances to disappear and reappear somewhere else." Morrison had to make them count. "All right, people," he said to his crew. "Phase 1 is complete. We have disabled a third of their fleet and disrupted their communications. But now they know we are here, and they are ready for us." He looked around the bridge at his crew. They were tired but determined. Each of them had performed miracles in the past hour. "Phase 2 starts now. We take the fight directly to their command ships. It is going to be dangerous, but we have already proven that humans can do the impossible." Brooks smiled grimly. "What are your orders, Captain?" Morrison turned back to the screen, where the remaining Zephyrian ships were preparing for a massive counterattack. "We show them that one human ship with the right crew can beat any odds." The remaining Zephyrian ships opened fire all at once. Hundreds of energy beams lit up space as they tried to hit the USS Defiant. Captain Jake Morrison gripped his chair as the ship shook from near misses. "Ghost drive now," Morrison shouted. "Lieutenant." Alex Turner activated the drive, and the Defiant disappeared just as a massive energy blast passed through the space where they had been. The ship reappeared behind a group of Zephyrian cruisers. "Return fire." Morrison ordered. Commander Lisa Brooks fired 2 quantum torpedoes at the enemy cruisers. The explosions disabled 4 more ships, but the victory was short-lived. The other Zephyrians had learned to track the Defiant's movements. "Captain, they are predicting where we will appear," Brooks said with worry in her voice. "They have weapons ready for us every time we phase back in." Morrison watched as energy beams searched the area around them. The aliens were getting smarter about their tactics. The element of surprise was almost gone. "Sam, how many more times can we use the ghost drive?" Morrison asked. Chief Engineer Sam Parker's voice came through the communicator, strained from the constant battle. "5 more times, Captain. After that, we fight like a normal ship." Dr. Kate Williams looked up from her station. Captain, the bombardment of New Denver has stopped. All remaining Zephyrian ships are focusing on us now. Morrison felt both relief and fear. The people on the planet were safer for now, but that meant over 100 enemy ships were trying to kill his crew. How many ships do we have disabled? Morrison asked. 87 confirmed, Turner reported. But the remaining ones are grouped tightly together. They are protecting each other. Morrison studied the tactical display. The Zephyrians had formed their ships into 3 large groups. Each group had heavy cruisers on the outside and command ships in the center. It was a strong defensive formation. They are learning from us, Brooks said, just like we learned from them. Morrison nodded. This was how war worked. Each side adapted to what the other side did. But humans were usually better at adapting quickly. Lisa, what happens if we attack one of those groups directly? Brooks ran calculations on her computer. The outer ships would absorb most of our torpedo damage. By the time we fought through to the command ships, the other 2 groups would surround us. And we would be destroyed, Morrison finished. Yes, sir. Morrison thought hard. They had done amazing work so far, but the easy part was over. Now they had to face the remaining Zephyrians. In direct combat, 1 ship against over 100. Captain, Parker's voice came through the communicator. I have been thinking about our plasma cannons. What if we overload them? What do you mean, Sam? I can make them fire at 3 times normal power. But they will only work for a few minutes before they burn out completely. Morrison considered. This, super-powered weapons for a short time, or normal weapons for a long fight. But in a long fight against so many enemies, they would lose anyway. Do it, Sam. Give us everything you can. Working on it now, Captain. Williams suddenly looked up from her science station. Captain, I am detecting something strange. The Zephyrian command ships are sending signals toward the planet. What kind of signals? Morrison asked, scanning beams, very focused. I think they found the research facility. Morrison's heart sank. If the aliens captured the quantum communication technology, humanity would lose a huge advantage in the war. How long before they reached the facility? Morrison asked. Williams checked her readings. They are sending landing ships now. 20 minutes, maybe less, 20 minutes. That was not enough time to defeat the remaining enemy fleet using careful tactics. They would have to take bigger risks. Alex, take us straight at the center group of ships, Morrison ordered. Turner looked shocked. Sir, that is the most heavily defended group. They have their biggest command ship there. I know. But that is also where their fleet commander is. Take out the commander, and the rest might lose their coordination. Brooks understood the plan. It is dangerous, Jake. We will have to fight through at least 30 ships to reach the command vessel. Then we better fight fast, Morrison said. Sam, are those plasma cannons ready? Ready, Captain. You have maximum power. Morrison took a deep breath. This was the most dangerous thing they had attempted. A direct assault on the strongest part of the enemy fleet. All hands prepare for direct combat. We are going in. The Defiant turned toward the center group of Zephyrian ships and accelerated to full speed. Immediately, dozens of energy beams reached out to destroy the small human ship. Ghost drive. Morrison shouted. The ship disappeared and reappeared inside the enemy formation. Suddenly they were surrounded by alien vessels on all sides. Fire everything. Morrison ordered. Brooks activated the overcharged plasma cannons. Brilliant beams of energy lanced out from the Defiant, striking 3 Zephyrian ships at once. The super-powered weapons tore through alien shields like they were made of paper. Direct hits, Brooks reported. 3 cruisers destroyed, but more enemy ships were closing in. Energy beams flashed past the Defiant as Turner flew the ship in wild, evasive patterns. Ghost drive again, Morrison commanded. They disappeared and reappeared behind the Zephyrian battle line. The plasma cannons fired again, destroying 2 more enemy ships. But the weapons were already showing signs of strain. "Sam, how long do we have?" Morrison asked. "Maybe 2 more minutes at this power level," Parker replied. Williams called out from her station. "The landing ships have reached the planet. They are attacking the research facility." Morrison felt time running out. They had to end this battle quickly, or everything they had fought for would be lost. "There," Brooks pointed at the screen. "The command ship is right there. If we can hit it with a quantum torpedo, we might disable their entire command structure." Morrison looked at the massive Zephyrian command vessel. It was twice the size of any other ship in the fleet, and it was surrounded by protective cruisers. "How do we get close enough?" Morrison asked. "We use the last of our ghost drive power," Turner suggested. "Appear right next to the command ship and fire before they can react." It was risky. If they missed, they would be trapped in the middle of the enemy fleet with no way to escape. "Sam, do we have any more modified torpedoes?" Morrison asked. 2 left, Captain, but I have been saving the best for last. I modified these to create the biggest energy cascade possible. If we hit the right spot on that command ship, the feedback might disable every ship connected to it. Morrison smiled grimly. Parker always had one more trick up his sleeve. How many ships could it affect? All of them in that group, maybe 40 or 50 ships. Morrison looked around the bridge. His crew was ready for whatever he decided. They trusted him completely, even when the odds were impossible. "Lisa, lock onto the command ship's main power core." "Target locked, Captain." "Alex, take us in. Use the ghost drive for the last time." Turner's hands moved over his controls. "Ghost drive charging. Ready on your command." Morrison watched as the Zephyrian ships continued to search for them. The aliens had no idea what was about to happen. "All right, people, this is it. One shot to end the battle. If we miss, we probably do not get another chance." The crew was silent, focused on their tasks. Morrison felt proud of every single one of them. "Ghost drive, activate." The Defiant disappeared from normal space one final time. When they reappeared, they were less than a kilometer from the massive Zephyrian command ship. The alien vessel filled their entire view screen. "Fire!" Morrison shouted. The quantum torpedo shot out from the Defiant and struck the command ship's power core dead center. For a moment, nothing happened. Then the entire ship began to glow with energy feedback. The cascade effect spread from the command ship to every vessel connected to it through power lines and communication links. One by one, the Zephyrian ships went dark as their systems overloaded and shut down. "It worked!" Brooks shouted with joy. 47 enemy ships disabled. But their celebration was cut short as the remaining Zephyrian ships opened fire. Without the ghost drive, the Defiant was trapped in the middle of the enemy fleet with nowhere to hide. Evasive maneuvers. Morrison ordered as energy beams flashed all around them. The final phase of the battle was about to begin. Energy beams flashed all around the USS Defiant as the remaining Zephyrian ships tried to destroy the small human vessel. Captain Jake Morrison held onto his chair as the ship shook from multiple hits. The shields were failing fast. "Shield power down to 30%, Commander Lisa Brooks reported. Her voice stayed calm even though they were surrounded by over 60 angry enemy ships. Lieutenant Alex Turner flew the ship in desperate patterns, trying to avoid the concentrated fire. But without the ghost drive, there was nowhere to hide. "Sam, how are those plasma cannons holding up?" Morrison asked through the communicator. Chief Engineer Sam Parker's voice came back strained. "They are overheating fast, Captain. Maybe one more minute before they burn out completely." Morrison watched as more Zephyrian ships moved into position around them. The aliens were being careful now. They wanted to make sure the troublesome human ship could not escape again. Dr. Kate Williams looked up from her station with worry on her face. Captain, the Zephyrian landing force has reached the research facility. They are trying to break into the underground labs. Morrison felt desperation growing. They had come so far and fought so hard, but they might still lose everything. The quantum communication technology could not fall into enemy hands. How long before they break through? Morrison asked. 10 minutes, maybe less, Williams replied. 10 minutes to finish a battle against impossible odds. Morrison looked around the bridge at his crew. They were all working beyond their limits, but they never gave up. That was the human way. Lisa, how many quantum torpedoes do we have left? Morrison asked. None, Captain. We used the last one on the command ship. Regular torpedoes? 6 left, Morrison thought hard. 6 torpedoes against 60 ships was not nearly enough. But maybe they did not need to destroy all the enemy vessels. Maybe they just needed to scare them away. Sam, I need you to do something. Crazy, Morrison said into the communicator. How crazy, Captain? What would happen if we overloaded our main reactor? There was silence for a moment. Then Parker's voice came back, sounding worried. That would create a massive explosion, Captain. Big enough to destroy everything within 50,000 kilometers. Including us. Especially us, Morrison nodded. He had expected that answer, but maybe there was another way. What if we only partially overloaded it? Made it look like we were going to explode, but actually kept it under control? Parker was quiet for a few seconds, thinking, it might work. I could make the reactor put out massive energy readings. It would look like we were about to explode. But keeping it stable would be very dangerous. How dangerous? If I make one mistake, we really do explode. Morrison looked at his crew. They were all listening to the conversation. They knew what he was thinking. Sam, how long could you maintain a fake overload? Maybe 3 minutes. After that, the reactor would either stabilize or actually explode. 3 minutes. That might be enough time. Do it, Sam. Make it look like we are going to take half their fleet with us when we explode. Working on it now, Captain. Morrison turned to his communications officer. Alex, open a channel to all Zephyrian ships. Channel open, sir. Morrison stood up and faced the main screen. When he spoke, his voice was loud and confident. Attention, Zephyrian fleet. This is Captain Jake Morrison of the USS Defiant. You have 30 seconds to retreat from this system before we detonate our reactor and destroy everything around us. On the screen, Morrison could see the alien ships. Hesitating. They were probably trying to figure out if he was bluffing. Sam, how are those energy readings? Morrison asked quietly. Perfect, Captain. Our reactor is putting out massive energy spikes. It looks like we are about to explode. Williams looked at her science station. The Zephyrian ships are detecting the energy buildup. Some of them are starting to back away, Morrison smiled. The aliens were scared. They had seen what the small human ship could do, and now they thought it was going to take many of them with it in a final explosion. 20 seconds, Morrison announced to the enemy fleet. More Zephyrian ships began to retreat. But some of the larger vessels held their positions. Their captains either thought Morrison was bluffing, or they were willing to die to stop the humans. 15 seconds. Turner called out from his station. Captain, about half the enemy ships are pulling back, but the others are moving closer. I think they are going to try to destroy us before we can explode. Morrison watched as the remaining Zephyrian ships accelerated toward the Defiant. They were going to try to finish the battle. Quickly, Sam, can you make the energy readings even higher? Morrison asked. Already doing it, Captain. But this is getting very dangerous. The reactor is actually starting to destabilize. Morrison felt sweat on his forehead. If Parker lost control, they would all die in a real explosion. 10 seconds. The Zephyrian ships opened fire with everything they had. Energy beams struck the Defiant from all directions. The shields failed completely, and the hull began to take damage. "Hull breach on Deck 7, Brooks reported. "Emergency force fields are holding. 5 seconds. Morrison watched as more Zephyrian ships retreated. But about 20 vessels were still attacking. Their captains had decided to destroy the Defiant before it could explode. "Sam, now would be a good time for a miracle," Morrison said. "Working on it, Captain. But I do not know how much longer I can hold this together." Suddenly, Williams called out from her station. "Captain, something is happening." To the Zephyrian ships that stayed to fight. "Their power systems are fluctuating." Morrison looked at the tactical display. The alien ships that had moved close to the Defiant were having problems with their engines and weapons. "What is causing that?" Morrison asked. Williams checked her. "Readings, the energy we are putting out from our reactor. It is interfering with their power systems. The closer they get, the worse it gets." Morrison realized what was happening. The fake reactor overload was actually working as a weapon. The massive energy output was disrupting the Zephyrian ship's electronics. "Sam, can you focus the energy output toward the enemy ships?" Morrison asked. "I can try, Captain, but it will make the reactor even more unstable." "Do it." Parker redirected the energy stream toward the attacking Zephyrian vessels. Immediately, their ships began to have serious problems. Weapons stopped working, engines failed, and life support systems flickered. "It is working," Turner said excitedly. "The remaining enemy ships are losing power." One by one, the Zephyrian ships that had stayed to fight began to drift helplessly as their systems shut down. The energy feedback from the Defiant's reactor was too much for their electronics to handle. "All enemy ships are disabled or retreating," Brooks reported with amazement in her voice. Morrison could hardly believe it. They had actually done it. One small human ship had defeated an entire alien armada. "Sam, can you stabilize the reactor?" "Now?" Morrison asked. "Working on it, Captain." "Give me 30 seconds." Morrison held his breath as Parker worked to bring the reactor under control. If something went wrong now, they would still die in an explosion. "Reactor stabilized," Parker finally announced. "We are safe." The bridge was quiet for a moment as everyone realized they had survived. Then Williams spoke up. "Captain, the Zephyrian landing force is retreating from the planet. All enemy ships are leaving the system." Morrison sat down in his captain's chair, suddenly feeling very tired. They had won against impossible odds, but the cost had been enormous. The ship was damaged, the crew was exhausted, and they had used up almost all their weapons and power. "Alex, open a channel to New Denver Colony," Morrison ordered. The main screen showed Governor Bill Harris, the man who had sent the original distress call. His face was dirty and tired, but he was smiling. "Captain Morrison," Harris said, "I do not know how you did it, but you saved us. The whole colony owes you their lives." Morrison managed a small smile. "Just doing our job, Governor." "Is the research facility safe and secure?" "The quantum communication technology is intact. This could really help humanity win the war." Dr. Williams looked up from her station. "Captain, I am detecting human ships on long-range sensors." "It looks like a rescue fleet." Morrison nodded. Other human ships had finally arrived, but the battle was already over. One small crew had done what an entire fleet might not have been able to do. "Sam, how is our ship?" Morrison asked. "Damaged but repairable, Captain. We will need a few weeks in dry dock, but the Defiant will fly again." Morrison looked around at his crew. They had all performed miracles during the battle. Under impossible pressure, they had shown why humanity could not be defeated. "Well done, everyone," Morrison said. "Today we proved that humans can accomplish anything when we work together. No matter how bad the odds look, we never give up." As the USS Defiant limped toward the rescue fleet, Morrison thought about what they had accomplished. They had saved thousands of innocent lives, protected vital research, and shown the galaxy that humanity would fight for what was right. The war with the Zephyrians was far from over, but today had been a turning point. Other human ships would learn from their tactics. The quantum communication technology would help coordinate the fleet better. And most importantly, everyone would know that humans could win against any odds. The stars ahead looked brighter as the small, damaged ship headed home, carrying the crew that had just changed the course of history.